All right, welcome to the City of International Falls regular City Council meeting for Monday, October 18th, 2021. Our first item on our agenda is to pledge allegiance to the flag. If you could please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Second item on our agenda is the call to order. Please note that our roll call, Councilor Deitch is out of town. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. There are no additions or deletions to the best of my knowledge at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilor Holden. We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Go to the approval of minutes. First set of minutes is from our regular city council meeting from October 4th, 2021. Chair would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Holden. Discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Go to the Committee of the Whole meeting from October 11th. Chair would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. So moved. We have a motion by Councilor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. Discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Next, we go to the payment of claims and accounts payable. The resolution before you shows permanent improvements transfer going to permanent improvement of $66,666.66, coming from both the sewer and waters to the 601 and 603 respectively, in the same amount of $33,333.33. We have monies going to reserve for capital outlay, $25,760.42. Coming from the 601 water, $19,136.17, and coming from the 603 sewer fund of $6,624.25 for total transfers of $92,427.08. International Falls regular claims of $1,940,910.97. Airport Commission claims of $33,467.68, and Library Board claims of $5,655.81 for a total accounts payable and claims of $1,980,034.46. Excuse me. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution and pay the bills.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Holden. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Next is audience. If there's anybody in the audience that has anything to bring to attention of the City Council that's not on the agenda, please, sir. Oh, Mike. Oh. We all got excited about that. My bad. It's okay, we're good.
My name is Leroy Averill, and I'm here to address some questions I have regarding blade issues. I have emailed Jared Baldwin and Joe Kraus, among others, for answers, and have received an email requesting me to be here tonight. I had inquired of Mr. Kraus and Mr. Baldwin why little to no action has been taken in my neighborhood on a recurring blight issue. Here is Mr. Kraus's response. Good morning to you too, Leroy. Why don't you come to the meeting and say it to our faces, you keyboard warrior? I'm tired of your emails. Your definition of blight and the city's definition of blight are two different things. She has garbage around the can week after week. I'll give you that, but by law she has 7 days to clean it up. There is literally and legally nothing we can do about it. We don't suppress anything. If you want to come and be heard, then by all means show up and be heard. Well, I'm here, Mr. Kraus, and I think it's time you listen to me face to face, as you put it. This issue has been going on for over a year now. If you can't do anything about it, why are we paying a blight officer $68,000 a year? I suggest you revisit your blight bylaws, because the way I interpret them, you only need to have garbage removed once a week. The rest of the time you can have a yard full. If the garbage was kept in her own yard, it wouldn't be bothering me as much. But the garbage is strewn onto the road, across my lawn, and everywhere else. The garbage is thrown out in trash bags or just on the lawn, with no containers for it. The seagulls, skunks, cats, and coyotes strew it everywhere. Yeah, coyotes. I have pictures of them eating garbage right in the middle of the road in front of my house. This woman has a dog and 6 cats, and I'm tired of them dragging garbage into my yard. So I'm here tonight to see how the council as a whole is prepared to deal with this issue.
Thank you. Well, I can tell you that the fire marshal has been over at that property multiple times. I can also tell you that there is processes in place, and I can understand 100% your frustration. There's a lot of people in our community that have neighbors that there's issues with, and we go over and we can give a citation, but it ends up being a legal process. And it's a long, drawn-out process. Not to throw anybody under the bus here, but the city attorney, how many are we dealing with on any given time right now? We have over 100 that we're working on right now, correct?
There are probably about 100 properties, over this year that fire marshal has been involved with in doing citations and taking corrective action.
Okay, but this is a repeat offender. It's every week for over a year. I would think 3 strikes and you're out, you get a fine regardless.
They have received fines.
Doesn't faze them.
That's the problems we're having as a community. I mean,
And that isn't the only thing around that neighborhood. I mean, there's a garage between 17th and 18th Street on 4th Avenue. The roof has been caved in. It's been over 4 years. It finally went back for tax forfeiture. And I was told by Mr. Kraus, action is going to be taken very soon. What's very soon? This year? Next year? When? The house that burnt down on the other side of my property, the garage, it's been over 2 years. No action was taken. The only reason it got cleaned up at all is because the guy couldn't make payments. TrueStar took it over, and TrueStar is the one that sent people out there to clean it up. The council didn't have anything to do with it. I had people come and visit me from Wisconsin Rapids. They looked around the neighborhood. They were thinking about moving back there, but I'll tell you what, it isn't very impressive looking.
and I think that all of the issues that you're bringing forward, we understand, we hear. The problem is we have not done a really good job on blight for the last however many years, let's say the last 20 years. This is the first council that has put their money where their mouth is, and to try to get that to come to fruition. We're stuck with court trials that are court cases that are a year and a half, 2 years out because the criminal justice system is behind. We can't just go tear down someone's house or garage and then assess it to their property right now. That's not something we can do. There's legal
Don't expect
processes.
anything like that. But look at the attitude I was given. Huh? Is that what you want for a councilman?
It is not an acceptable email. I will definitely give you that.
Mr. Mayor, if I-
Please.
That's all I've got.
Mr. Averill, thank you for coming. I apologize for the tone of the email, and I'm gonna, and I will say, and I will own it. I absolutely wrote that email, and I will say this. I share.
But I can prove it.
Right, I own it. You can quote me on it, they can put it in the newspaper, they can put it wherever. I wrote it. I will tell you, I wrote it. I will say this, I share your frustration. And you and I have had how many exchanges? We've been emailing for almost a year.
It hasn't been a year, I haven't said anything to you until this beginning of this summer, early spring.
At any rate, I'm happy to see you here because I want this out there. We've had these exchanges. There are certain properties in this community, and I'm going to say it. This happens, it gets cleaned up, and then it happens again, and it gets cleaned up, and it happens again. And the neighbors, I'm going to say it. I have a neighbor that has multiple animals, and I can't leave my garbage out on garbage day. I have to haul it out the morning of, because if I put it out the night before, it's going to be all over the alley. And I know it, and I don't like it. And there's nothing I can do about it. So, and then every other garbage can is the same way.
That was feral cats. Okay, if they're feral cats, why is you as a Center Ward councilman, why aren't the animals licensed if you know they're feral and who they belong to?
I can't prove who owns it because it's just out there. I have a live trap. I've live trapped them and sent them to the pound, but I don't know where they end up from there.
But the council does hold your frustration. We understand where you're at, and we do.
He challenges me to come up here and say this before the council. What do you think I'm afraid of?
Nothing. You're here.
Well, why do you word it like that? Sorry excuse for a councilman.
All right, we will, anybody else in the audience to bring anything forward? Please.
Good evening, council. My name is Ed Bates. I moved to this community about 8 years ago now. And I just have some really simple questions for you. And I know the time for the discussion on the levy for property taxes is not until December. I just like to get all my ducks in a row as far as having a conversation about that at that time. So we're coming off, and I've spoke to Mayor Drober about this, so we're coming off of 2 down years as far as income, right, with regard to the 1% sales and use tax. And I guess my question is, when they originally sold the 1% sales and use tax on the citizens of International Falls, it was $30 million or 30 years. From my conversation with Mayor Drober, apparently we're $3.5 million short this year alone?
No, we've done $3 million worth of, we've done projects, we're actually ahead of how much money that we have coming in, but that can be only used for specific projects of what we had laid out, which was basically the infrastructure that was, I don't want to say shot, but stuff that isn't routine maintenance. It is stuff that has been deferred maintenance for the last 30 years. We actually are up on how much money has come in.
Can you provide me an example of this additional shortcoming, of what that is specifically?
I don't understand your question.
Well, you're making the argument now that, of course, right, we're ahead on funds, right, but there's additional expenditures that aren't covered by the 1% sales and use tax.
Yes.
Right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Can you give me an example of what those expenditures are?
Can I defer to you, Ted? Please.
So 1% sales tax can only be used for infrastructure projects. So it can't be used for facilities, but there's no shortfall. We've done, at the end of this year, we have done, as our local road project, we have done $3.2 million worth of road work approximately, which we bonded for as part of Highway 53. $3.2 million. Our goal was to do $1.6 million worth of road work a year, $850,000 for the water storage tank, and the $250,000 Pleasant Avenue water main replacement. But there's no shortfall of dollars for those projects.
Okay, then perhaps I'm misunderstanding. What is the additional $3.5 million that you referenced in your message to me that we are short?
That was in the budget as a whole, when all of our departments had given what they needed to get through next year. There was a lot more money than what we had budgeted. We cut the budget, and then ultimately, we still raised the levy 14% to offset that money. That's the $3 million going into next year's budget. It was from what we have now to what we have next year with the projects that we have to do and set monies aside.
You will recoup that money rate until the end of next year, even on a 14% levy, in the event that it was rate approved at 14% at the end of this year, rate for next year's taxes. You wouldn't that money wouldn't come to you until, the end of fiscal year 2022.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, it's not $3.5 million, it's $350,000. You've got an extra zero in there. A 14% levy increase is $350,000, not $3.5 million.
Okay.
So as a whole, the taxpayers of if we raise the levy $350,000, as a whole, the taxpayers of the city of International Falls, it'd be $350,000, not $3.5 million.
Okay. So assuming that is the $350,000, $3.5 million, whatever it is.
Right.
Regardless.
Right.
At the end of next year, when you have recouped that money, do the citizens of International Falls have any guarantee that we'll go back to the pre-tax level, or are you just going to continue to collect that? Because it seems to me like the council as a whole has been fiscally irresponsible with the money, that the citizens of this community provide for it. Because you're spending more than you're taking in, hence you're short. Now, I manage a business in town, I don't get to turn around and go, and be like, oh, well, you know what, I'm just short here, I'll just take it from that guy, I have to figure out in my budget, where to make those cuts, or how to generate, more sales for my company. But the first part of that is, of course, to cut my expenditures, If I'm too high in payroll, people get laid off. That's just what happens. And it seems to me that the council as a whole has been relatively fiscally irresponsible with spending money that it doesn't have, and then turning around later and saying, you know what, we're short, we'll just get it from the people.
But I think, fundamentally, and I would love to have this conversation, sit down one-on-one and have this conversation, but I think the difference, and coming from a background of running businesses myself, I can see exactly where you're coming from, but municipal government is a little bit different, because we can't just fix the roads and keep everything going, because what has happened historically, at least in our community, is the city councils that have been fiscally responsible have kicked that can down the road and have not fixed the roads, and they have not fixed the sewers, and they have not done any of that stuff. And as the prices went up over time, we get to a point where now we have to have a 15% levy increase to just fix the roads. And if we want to keep the city running, we have to keep our employees.
But the roads are part of the infrastructure, are they not? Should the 1% not go to cover that?
It's not enough. It's not enough to cover it.
Close to cover.
I guess that's my question, that I was getting to in the beginning, is that we're coming off of 2 down years with COVID, You've had businesses closed, people out of work, nobody out spending any money because they couldn't, and we're just starting to come back to that, 18 months later, and the businesses are still struggling, can't find employees, they're cutting shifts, you see that all over town, and restaurants are closing early, dining rooms closed, whatever, right, that you're not generating that income, that 1% isn't there.
That 1%.
Like, do you really think, though, that now is the right time to punish property owners, right, who have had, right,
who have
much of a
used this,
struggle?
and again, I don't want to have we can have this conversation at another time, and I would love to sit down and lay all the cards on the table. But the thing of it is the people in the last 2 years that you're saying that haven't, they've still had the services. In the time of COVID, we still had our police, our fire, we still have public works, I mean, our administration. The reality is we're still providing a service, whether there was COVID or there wasn't COVID. We're still behind and if we wanted to cut the budget, the most reasonable way to do it, to cut the thing, is either cut projects out of public works, or the most financially, I don't want to say draining because it's the wrong word, but it's your employees. So then we have to figure out, how do we want to move forward with the city with less employees, less public works, less firefighters, less police. The thing of it is we get to a point where we're not running the city. We have to have a balance, and to be completely honest, and I know that members of this council have said this, but even at a 15% or a 14% levy increase, we're still going to have the lowest taxes in the state of Minnesota. And we're providing a service to our residents. The county's in the same boat as us right now. They're looking at a 5% levy increase and a 0.5% sales tax for infrastructure. What we're doing is not outside the norm of what other communities have to do to move forward. The problem is we haven't historically went up a little bit every year. We were stagnant for almost 7 years, and I don't know exactly what the time frame was. We didn't have any levy increase in our community. And in that time frame, we still gave a 0.5% or a 1% raise to our staff, and that gets us farther and farther behind. And in those time frames, you continue to treat your employees well, you continue to move your community forward, but every year that you do that and you don't raise the levy, you're actually cutting from your public works, your projects, you're cutting from your what you put into your fire station, what you put into your equipment, and you become less and less as a community. By a 14% levy increase right now, we're not going to be moving into the 22nd century. All we're doing is trying to catch up to what other communities are able to do and serve to our residents. And arguably, I will say that right now, we are doing really well in our community. We have growth. We have a good school district. We have a fire department, police department. We're fixing our infrastructure. I do understand where you're coming from, and again, my invitation is there. I really do want to sit down and have that conversation.
No, I would love to have that conversation with you, Renee. I'm still waiting on a copy of the budget.
Yeah.
So, I served the city of International Falls for about 40 years, electrical for the city. And the infrastructure of the city, because there wasn't money levied for that over some time period, we have existing infrastructure that's rotting. I'm talking about sewer lines, cast iron water lines that are rusting away. We've had several water breaks. We got to take care of the infrastructure of the city.
No, and it's not that I don't understand that, right? I don't want you to get the wrong impression that I don't want to improve International Falls, right? I moved here 8 years ago, right? I love this community, right? It's been very welcoming to me. And I guess my issue is, right, 14% seems like a large, before this I lived in Canada, and as you can imagine, their taxes are off the chain. So I'm not, averse to high taxes and where that comes from. I guess my concern is that we have, you have a budget of, these are all the services that you provide, and then you, of course, have discretionary spending. And I don't know that there isn't, or that you've exhausted all the options as far as getting rid of some discretionary spending to offset that, and maybe it doesn't need to be 14%, maybe only 5, or maybe only 7, right, at $350,000. It seems foolish to me to spend money that, obviously we're short on. For example, the $30,000 rate at $2,000 a month, right, for the Cary Park project, right, seems foolish to me at this particular juncture. Not that it doesn't need to be done, or not that it's not a welcome change to the community, it's growth and that's great. I would love to see a variety of things. I wish we had a curling rink. But do we need to spend $30,000? What if they come back later and they turn around and they say, well, we couldn't find you $2 million? Right? That's $30,000 we just down the drain, and that's 10% of what it is you're saying we're short.
Understood.
So, right there off the bat, there's 1.4% that you could subtract from that 14%, right, by saving 10%, right? I understand that in the summer, you bought a lawnmower for $28,000, I think was the figure that I saw, right? Well, that's, 30 grand roughly, right? There's another 1.4%, right?
However, it's a balance, again, we really have to have this conversation outside this meeting, but it's a balancing act too. And that's one of the things, I love this conversation. This is the type of thing that, you're not coming in mad, we're not upset, this is a great conversation, but it's a balancing act because that piece of equipment, how much time is that saving from being able to move from having two people haul a lawnmower from one side of the city to the second side of the city out to where you could just ride and do the entire thing. So it's a time thing too. These are all decisions that when the public looks at it, they're like, well, that seems to be a little bit pricey.
Right.
But the reality is we sit in a public works meeting and we have those discussions, and this is going to save time. We can cut one. We don't need to have one more summer staff. We don't have to pay them. We also went to a read system on our water tower. We put a reading system on there, and it saved us a salary a year, basically. So, those are all things that we're trying to do. You save a little bit here, you may spend a little bit more here, but yeah, these are all balancing acts that you have to do as municipal government.
Mr. Mayor, and just to kind of go back to your business analogy, so we went 7 years where we stagnated and we didn't raise the levy at all. So like in a business analogy, if you're selling goods, basically we went 7 years without raising the price of our goods at all. But our salaries went up, everything went up, the price of doing business, utilities went up, price of doing business, price of fuel, everything went up for those years. And all we did is we cut, well, maybe we'll push that street off.
Right.
Maybe we'll not buy that new lawnmower that year. Maybe so they did. We did all that discretionary stuff.
And I know there's other people
and
here, and
that's
I don't
where-
want to take up their time.
And what happened is if we would have, the moral of the story is if we would have went up like that 1% each of those years, we wouldn't be, or 1.5 each of those years, we wouldn't be where we are right now. But we kicked that can. How many water breaks do we have this summer? 18 water breaks, and it's not even freezing season right now, and we're breaking water lines in the summer, so we're...
Totally get it, right? The problem with you using my analogy is that I wouldn't have given employees raises, right, if I couldn't afford it, right? Whereas, right, and this is what I mean by being fiscally irresponsible. You gave people raises, for example, right, your example, not mine.
Right.
Right, without having the money to cover, right? So that was very foolish. Right? And I think we can all agree that that's a foolish way. You run a business, right, and you don't walk in and say, you know what, I'm going to give you all $10 an hour more, right, and then not raise my prices and then go bankrupt, right, and then sit there and go, well, where did all my money go? Right? You have to create, right, value, right, with that.
Yeah.
So you want to pay your employees more? Great, more power to you, right? I expect to go into your place, and if it was $7.50 for a sandwich, now it's going to be $10.
Mayor?
Please.
So we started out, we had a 27% we were looking at, and all the departments made cuts to get us down to 13.9. 27% to 13.9. And that's with looking at infrastructure. I guarantee it needs to be fixed.
I'm not arguing that it does.
Yeah, but it's big. It's bigger than you think. There's miles of underground wires in this town that are probably 50, 60, 70 years old. I worked on them. I know. When I came to town, they were already there, a lot of it. So there's infrastructure. It's more than just water and sewer. It's electrical wires that feed all the street lighting for the city of International Falls. There's a lot of stuff. And I think we were physically, how do you say? Physically. Yeah, good, in that we chopped it down through hard work from the department heads, 27% down to 13.9, with the idea to fix 18 water breaks, like Mr. Kraus is saying, in the summertime.
Right.
What's going to happen when it's 30 below?
I would love to have this conversation. I know there's people waiting, and but Mayor Drobit knows how to get a hold of me at May, and you guys would love to sit down and talk. I'd love to hear more.
Thank you.
City Administrator, can we get him a copy of the 2022 budget? Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll go down to the consent agenda. We have we have a resignation in the police department, Officer Alexandria Stevens, separation from employment. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Councilor Holden. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Kraus. Any discussion? Oh, there is no discussion. Call the question.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And I will vote yes. Motion carries 4-0. Next item is consider the purchasing of a new air conditioning unit for the upstairs of the fire hall training room. Chief Manassa.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago here, we had our air conditioning unit upstairs, a split pack upstairs. We had a electrical component on it, burn out on it, so we called Shannon's and had them come over and take a look. The unit that is up there is not fixable, so we have to replace it. I did get a quote from Shannon's, being they were here that day. The other reason, I only obtained one quote. The reason for that is they came in on the last job and are quoting similar equipment to what we put in downstairs. So the quote they offered me was $6,199. We have that in the budget, not for an AC, but under maintenance and repair of buildings, split between the fire and ambulance. And I don't know that there's any specifics on the quote that you need to see other than it is a Mitsubishi, like what's downstairs. Similar unit. Should be good to go.
And this is under the threshold where we don't have to have multiple bids. Okay. Councilor Kraus.
And this includes a heat pump as well, right? Correct. It does. Yep. It's heat and... Yep. Okay.
Did you have...
I'd like to see another bid.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion either to accept the bid or to seek bids. I would just say one thing, that it ends up being weird because we already have Shannon's bid that's public information. But Chair would entertain a motion at this time of one of those two.
I move to accept the bid.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the bid from Shannon's. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilor Holden, so we have a motion by Councilor Kraus. We have a second by Councilor Holden. Any discussion?
Just discussion, just that although I agree with Councilor Buller with it already being out there.
Yeah, I understand.
We've run into this in the past. It's already, the numbers already out there.
I know, but I would like to see everybody aware of the fact to get two bids before you come up here with one.
Right.
There are other air conditioner people in town that can give us bids too, and now we're just not giving them a chance. They're all taxpayers too.
Yep, understood. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I can appreciate Councilor Buller's opinion on this. I certainly get it. I don't know if this is a possibility for municipality. I would just question, I mean, sometimes when things break, I mean, what do we do for go-tos? I mean, do we have this set up where do we put out a maintenance contract for the year? I'm not challenging your opinion. I actually appreciate your opinion, but in the same token, I called Shannon's. I didn't call anybody else to come fix it. So do we have something established within the municipality to call somebody? Do we have a first call? Do we put that out? Do we? And again, not challenging your opinion, I'm actually
I guess
seconding it a
I'm
little
not
bit.
questioning whether you called them or not. I mean, I think, yeah, you got to call somebody that can probably come and fix it. But if we're going to get a bid on a new one, then we need to consider other stuff. I mean, I'm not questioning and questioning whether you should have called Shannon's or not. Don't get me wrong there, but I'm questioning and saying that before we call for one bid and have it come up here, we should have at least two.
Maybe before making the bid public.
And we've got Rain Lake Heating out there that does the same thing. So that's just my thoughts.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we go to Committee of the Whole recommendations. Consider changing the licensure of the water plant from an A to a B with the Minnesota Department of Health, as the current process of the plan qualifies it as a B licensed plant. Ted?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As I mentioned before, that by having the plant scored, a Class B plant is 56, a gap between 56 to 75 points. Anything over a 75 point would automatically deem it an A plant. The score is 74. Nothing changes. Nothing along testing, quality of water, nothing along them lines. I feel it gives us a better safety net if we have a problem with A licensure, which are getting harder and harder to find. If we change the process in the future, and our points go up, which will have to be approved by the Department of Health whenever we make changes, if they deem that it's over 75 points, we would go back to an A plant. The B licensure, both A and Bs are difficult to get, but the B, it's a difference between 24 hours of continuing ed versus 36 hours of continuing ed every 3 years. I'm going to make a phone call and say we're a B plant. That's how the process is handled. It's been approved by the Eric Welch. Don't quote me on his name, but our district rep for the Department of Health has reviewed it, and he agrees, and he said that if we wanted to become a B plant, I would just have to call him. So I really don't, I think it gives us more options.
Okay. So, Chair would entertain a motion to accept the recommendation and change the licensure of the water plant from an A to a B with the Minnesota Department of Health.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Holden. Any further discussion?
Any questions?
I like the fact that, for a B license being, it makes it a B, that we have backup, in case one of them gets sick and then you don't have any problem because you got a backup. And most places don't have 2A licenses. They're extremely hard to get. He can keep his license, the guy that's got the A license.
Absolutely, and the one thing, like I mentioned at the Committee of the Whole, I still encourage, you're allowed to go one level above the plant you work at. So our sewer collection license, we're a C system, okay? You're allowed to go to a B. If you're a B water plant, you're allowed to take an A test. So I still encourage staff
Oh, yeah.
to better themselves.
Yep.
That's one thing that I will not discourage. I will encourage. If you're a B operator and I'll tell you, to get that A license, you've got to know your stuff, and
A tests are usually all day long.
So, yeah, it's not where we're going to say, no, we're a B plant, we're not going to, I encourage staff for continuing that. That is, and if they can better themselves, it's going to better the city, so.
All right, do we have a motion and a second? Call the question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Next. Next is the one that was talked about all day today in International Falls.
Yes, we did.
Prohibit dressing Smokey the Bear statue in seasonal or any other attire besides his traditional blue jeans, belt buckle, and campaign hat, and shovel in his hand, as outlined in the Smokey Bear Guidelines for Consistency. Chair would entertain a motion to move that forward.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Councillor Holden. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councillor Kraus. Discussion? Really?
Can I talk about it? I talked about it today, once already today, and I was kind of caught in the middle on this one because I used to decorate the bear for X amount of years, I want to say from the mid-'80s on, and kind of enjoyed it, really, but I also had a dad that worked for the forestry, Minnesota Forestry, for 36 years, and Smokey the Bear was a big deal in our family. I'm impressed with the way the city had Smokey the Bear fixed up. He looks like $1 million out there. And he looks good in his attire that they want it to be. And that's blue jeans, belt buckle, possibly, it's okay to have the shovel, but that's it. And there's a reason for that. They don't want the importance of Smokey the Bear to be degraded. And I know we've been careful about what goes up there, whether it's earmuffs or scarves or whatever. But I think it's the right move because that's what their rules were for, and that's why I made the motion.
Any other discussion? I would just say that when this got brought to land use and legislation, as something to consider. Before we found this, I had reached out to other communities, Alexandria, Blue Earth, Bemidji, maybe another one or two, and I spoke to Chamber of Commerce's with, Chisholm, that was the one, and about their big statues and stuff, and I found out that there's a difference between Paul Bunyan and Boxy Bunyan, which Boxy Bunyan is in Bemidji, and he is not allowed to be dressed or hold any attire for any events. You can stand next to him, but you can't put anything on him. He doesn't hold anything. So I asked the question to these other communities, and they thought it was kind of crazy that we did decorate our stuff, and then they asked how much we spend in maintenance on him, and I said, well, every couple of years we put a couple $1,000s into him, and we just did $30,000 to get him up and running again, and they just all told me that it's just crazy. I mean, this is your community. This is what you want to be known for, is having this thing, and to allow people to put up anything on him, even with council permission, is just ridiculous to them. And so anyways, I brought that information to the land use and legislation, and then we found this from the forestry department, and it just reiterates that we need to have a standard for Smokey the Bear, and that's where we're at, so. All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion carries 4-0. Any other business to come before the council? Hearing none, we'll go to reports of the administrator, attorney, department heads. City administrator?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
City attorney?
Mr. Mayor and Council, we had a busy day in district court today. I think we had 36 cases, city cases, criminal cases. Been real involved now with the negotiating team working on the upcoming union contracts. We've met with 2 of the unions and are scheduled to meet with the 3rd, and those are progressing, and that's all I have for today.
Any questions for the city administrator or city attorney? City attorney, I have a question. I'll speak in generalities just because. In the event that we wanted to purchase a property from somebody in the community, but we can't get the property appraised, can we make an offer on property, or do we need to have an appraisal?
I'm not certain off the top of my head. I don't know that an appraisal is typically not required in any real estate transaction. Whether they're, I'd need to check the charter and the ordinances to see if there's something specific that would require us to do that. As long as it's being fiscally responsible, I don't know that that would necessarily be required, but I don't know for certain. I can certainly look that up and get that information back to you.
Okay, and on a second note, I was informed today that Stock Tire is up on market again. So I don't know if that's something we want to pursue moving forward. I know that we had a purchase agreement and the time had expired on that. However, I believe they've had another purchase agreement since then, and that has deteriorated, and it is now up for sale again. So I don't know how we would want to move forward on that too, but.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we had an agreement. It was moving forward smoothly. They, in my opinion, used a technicality to back out of it at the 11th hour. And Ted and I tried to work with them, and I think they're playing games, and maybe the reason they did it is they had somebody else that was going to pay them more, and now that fell through, and they've been trying to sell them for years until we came along, and I guess that's really Ted's call, I would say. It was for his department that the plan was there, and he and I have not had any discussions about it, but we certainly can discuss whether or not he thinks it would be in the best interest of the Public Works Department to pursue it again.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to put that out there that...
At a reduced rate.
I would think so.
Say what?
At a reduced rate.
Well, I won't go into the detail, but I know that the level 1 environmental was the hang-up on the city that fell through, so what the city did offer to do for free, or not for free, but with a grant that we had, so. Anyways, we'll move forward. Any department heads have anything for council this evening? All right, in your packet, you have your police monthly report, your fire EMS monthly report, and the building zoning safety coordinator's third quarter report. Go to the reports of the mayor, council, committees, boards, and commissions. I would just say that at the committee of the whole, we had the discussion about moving forward with having a conversation with Rotary regarding the splash park. I am speaking at Rotary next Wednesday, so we'll have that discussion, and I have contacted members of Rotary, and they are putting together their team to be able to set up a meeting with us and Kraus Anderson, whether via Zoom or whatever, just to hammer out what their plans are to what our plans are, so that we start working in unison for the project. So that is moving forward. I have nothing else. Anybody else from audience that want to bring anything forward to the council? Hearing none, there's correspondence from Senator Smith that the Canadian travel restrictions will be ending in early November, and you have some information from the public library meeting. With that being said, our next regular city council meeting is going to be November 1st, 2021. Immediately following this meeting, we have a EDA meeting.